Hi everyone, and welcome to the Mental Training Room. This is your host, Haley Herdman. I'm a former Division I basketball player and current mental health therapist.
And I am Naomi Yim, also a former Division I basketball player and a current real estate investor with a passion for athlete mental health.
Throughout our time as collegiate athletes, Naomi and I struggled with our emotional well-being, and we know from this experience how neglected the mental aspect of sports can be, which is why we created this podcast, to foster a safe space for other athletes to open up about their own experiences.
Whether you are an athlete, coach, parent, or anyone with an athlete in their circle, we hope you can gain some insight from our episodes that can help you along your journey. And the most important thing we hope you can take from our podcast is that you are never alone in your struggles.
Now, let's get into it. Welcome to the Mental Training Room. Today in the Mental Training Room, we are joined by a powerhouse in the sports performance world, Coach Kelly Dormandy, or as we like to call her, Coach D.
Coach D is currently the Director of Women's Basketball Sports Performance at the University of Southern California. Prior to this, she held various roles in sports performance at Georgia, Maryland, and South Carolina.
But most importantly to us, Coach D was the Assistant Athletics Director for Sports Performance at Loyola Marymount University, which is where our paths crossed. She was our strength and conditioning coach for a bit our freshman year, and then again for my senior year.
In addition to these leadership roles, Coach D has a very winning resume at USC. She contributed to a 2014 Pac-12 women's basketball title, a 2018 NCAA soccer championship, and a back-to-back beach volleyball national titles in 2016 and 2017.
She also served as head strength and conditioning coach for the LA Sparks, where she helped lead the team to a 2016 WNBA championship while working with legends like Candace Parker and Nneka Ogwumike.
Before all of that, Coach D also played collegiate soccer at Maryland and Quinnipiac before turning to fitness competition, which we will dive deeper into during our conversation with her. We are very grateful for this full circle moment with Coach D, and we hope you all enjoy this episode.
I love the LMU. How long has it been since you wore that stuff?
I haven't worn it in quite some time. I think it was January of 2022.
You
I
took it off right when I left. You couldn't wear it anymore.
Yeah, I was gonna ask, when did you guys graduate?
2022. Well, 2022 for me.
2020.
Okay, 2021.
Yeah.
It's been a time. So how old are you guys now? I'm gonna age myself a lot right now.
25.
Oh, you guys are babies. Oh my god.
Yes, Coach D's 21 in my heart always.
Yeah.
You know what? Actually, I would not choose to go back to my 20s.
I don't think I would either.
I would say I think you have your best years yet ahead of you. I'm not saying don't enjoy your 20s, but I thoroughly enjoyed my 30s. I'm hopeful I'm going to enjoy my 40s more than my 30s because my chapter of my 30s is coming close to an end. I've still got about a year and 2 weeks.
Oh my God.
But yeah, so I'm looking forward to enjoying the last year of my 30s soon.
I love that.
I have to talk to you about my closest friend since like middle school. She's coming to USC, London.
Oh, London, the news is out. Yeah, we can talk about that now. She's officially committed.
Yeah.
So then you gonna be at some games?
I will.
Yeah, now she'll come with me.
I will be.
Okay, good.
Yes.
Good. We need you both in the arena.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know, I was never had a USC or UCLA side, even growing up in LA, but now that I'm a USC alum, I feel like, that is my, But
You can't not be doing this as an alum.
London, because Naomi was UCLA fan, so I felt like, oh yes, go London. But now it's all in one, so it's great.
I'm a USC fan.
Yeah.
There we go. Even if you're just telling me that for right now, then it's all good.
I've been a USC football fan since forever, so I've always been USC except London.
She was the one exception.
Exactly.
Okay, amazing. So should we get into it?
Yes.
Let's do it. Let's dive in.
Let's start off with some positive news. Coach D, let's start with you. What's one good thing that's happened to you recently?
I got a chance to reset with my sister in Cabo after the season. those of us that have all been involved with basketball, which is all three of us, know that there is not a ton of flexibility within the basketball season or off season.
Yes.
So, and with me being in LA and my family being on the East Coast, I don't get to spend a ton of time with them. So we booked this trip a couple months ago and it was a guarantee that we were going to go. Was just hoping I'd be celebrating a national championship, but it's all good.
Yeah, it's okay.
That definitely would have been the cherry on top to
yes,
an amazing
for sure.
vacation. Elite athletes know performance isn't just about what you do in the game. It's about how you prepare and how you recover. That's why today's episode is brought to you by Defend USA. If you want to stay in peak shape, you can't afford to ignore the power of recovery. That's where Defend USA comes in. Trusted by the NBA, WNBA, MLB, NCAA, and beyond, Defend USA's compression gear is designed to help you train harder, recover faster, and perform at your best. Their military-grade compression technology boosts circulation, reduces muscle fatigue, and helps prevent injury, so you can push limits without breaking down. That's why the best athletes don't just train hard, they recover smarter. Level up your recovery, level up your game. Check out Defend USA at dfndusa.com and at dfndusa on Instagram and get the gear trusted by the pros. Because true champions don't just train hard, they recover harder. Well, we're so excited to have you here with us, Coach D. It's definitely a full circle moment for us. And like we were kind of just saying, the last time we all spoke was 3 to 4 years ago, really, which is just crazy to think. But before we get into a little bit more about what you're doing now and where you're at in life, I want to go back and kind of start talking about your upbringing and how that really shaped who you are today and the coach that you are. I think doing the therapy work that I'm doing now, hearing stories about people's childhoods it's just so formative. Like, it gives us so much, it paints such a clear picture of, where people came from and kind of just what those experiences that shaped them to be who they are today. And I think it's so cool, like all that, the psychodynamic work and all of those, those clinical terms. But for you, can you just kind of start off and share with us a little bit more about your upbringing?
Yes, I was adopted when I was 9 days old into an all-white family. My father was the assistant athletic director and girls varsity high school volleyball coach at Choate Rosemary Hall. We actually grew up on the campus of the school, so I was considered a faculty brat. My mother was a nurse, and I'm a middle child. I have an older brother and a younger sister. I was very fortunate to have the upbringing that I did. Come to find out, when I was 33 years old, I met my birth family, and it all turned out to be an amazing story. I only grew up 10 minutes from them, and they always wanted to know where I was and how I was doing, and when we met, it was just a complete full circle moment for them to know that I had been cared well for and to know that I turned out well and that I've had a great life and career and so on and so forth. So there were never any hard feelings. But I think also it was still slightly different knowing and seeing. And I always ask my dad, like, when did I wonder or question, like, why is my skin brown but my brothers and sisters is white? Right. And he's like, honestly, I don't remember. And he said, I don't remember because we never treated you or brought you into the family as anybody different than one of our own. And your brother knew you as his little sister and your little sister knew you as your big sister. So it was never really a topic or conversation of anything that ever came up because you were just one of our own and you were part of the family. I will say, I grew up around sports. My father was a high school volleyball coach. I was in sports at a very young age. I believe he was my first soccer coach at 5 years old. I later went on to play soccer, basketball, and run track in high school. But my mom also played rugby in school. So I was very active as a kid. With my brother being older than I was always trying to keep up with him. So I think that instilled the competitiveness in me at a very young age. I learned that beating him wasn't going to be easy. So I never took it for granted when I could beat him and his friends in anything. But I think the biggest takeaway for me is my parents always gave me everything that I needed, but not always everything that I wanted. And when you're a kid, that doesn't sit well. You probably throw a temper tantrum or two. But at my age now, as I look back on life, I'm grateful that they did that because now I truly understand the value of hard work. And when you earn something and how meaningful it is to see the work go into something and see the result that you desire. you aren't always going to get the result you desire, but such is life. Life isn't fair, and you start over and anew when adversity strikes. But yeah, I'm grateful for the upbringing and the childhood that I've had, and I think it has immensely shaped me into the person I am today.
Yeah. Those are such impactful experiences, and I feel like one of the biggest things that I look back to is like, wow, my mom was always right, no matter what it was. Like, even if I decided not to listen to her, like the first thing that comes to mind is like she told me not to take AP stats, and I was like, I was like at the time already committed and everything. She's like, and I'm like, I'm gonna prove you wrong. Like, I'm gonna take AP stats. I end up transferring out like 2 weeks into the school year. But I wish that, just all of that to say, like, can relate with you on the fact of like being so grateful for everything that she taught me or that she like made me realize. But I feel like in the moment, like you said, like that gratitude is not there. And I wish that as kids, and that's what I try and instill in my little brother too, is like, just be grateful for everything, even if dad is like being hard on you, whatever it is, like one day you're going to look back and be super grateful for all of those moments. Just wish that gratitude kind of hit in the moment a little bit more growing up.
Yeah, for sure. And I don't know about you, Haley, but my mom was always right. And she knew she was always right, whether I knew she was right or not. But my mom would always let me figure out that I was wrong.
Yep. Yes.
And that was the key. Like, okay, like here's my opinion and piece of advice, but obviously you think otherwise and think better, so go for it and see what happens. And then there's the aha moment, like, dang, I should have listened.
Yeah, so true. And then there is that part too, when I think about it from like a clinical lens, is that we were able to have the autonomy to make our own decisions, which then, kind of going back to what you said, is like all of that shapes then who we are now, and being able to feel confident in making our own decisions and looking at like weighing pros and cons and really putting a lot of thought into it all. So that's really awesome. But yeah, it sounds like your childhood really was a really big like learning experience. And looking back, I know you mentioned your parents and the way that they raised you, but what other things do you feel like helped you kind of develop the mindset that you have now and that you implement into your work?
I would say I was never the most talented athlete on my sports teams, but I was typically always the most athletic. So I could find a way to play, to start, to add value, because I was fast, I was strong, but maybe not the most technical. I enjoyed playing multiple sports, so I didn't enjoy specializing. And to this day, I almost kind of wish when I went to college that I had chosen a lower level so that I could have been either a 2 or 3 sport athlete, because that's what I really enjoyed the most. But because I wasn't the most talented, like I had to work my butt off. And just instilling that ruthless and unparalleled work ethic in anything and everything that you do, not knowing what the outcome is going to be, but always hoping for the best, that life will unfold in a way that works in your favor. You just don't know when or how, but it will always work out if you just put your hard hat on and go to work. So I think that's always been my mentality, is to be the hardest worker in the room.
I think that's the biggest lesson that I did learn in college. When you make it to college, you're typically the best player on your team in high school, but once you go to college, everyone's talented, but the work ethic is kind of what separates you.
This episode is sponsored by PhysioWorks Physical Therapy. Sports aren't just about skill, it's about strength. And I'm not just talking about physical strength. Athletes train their bodies, push their limits, and build muscle to perform at their best. But what happens when injury strikes, or when movement just doesn't feel right? That's where PhysioWorks Physical Therapy comes in. PhysioWorks isn't just about recovery, it's about unlocking your full potential. Their expert team helps you rebuild strength, improve mobility, and prevent future injuries, so you can get back to doing what you love. Because strong muscles create strong athletes. At PhysioWorks Physical Therapy in Redondo Beach, California, they understand that true performance is both physical and mental. So whether you're rehabbing an injury or leveling up your game, don't just push through the pain. Work with the best. Because a strong body fuels a strong mind. And when both are in sync, that's when you truly win.
There's always one great player on a college team, but the rest of the 12 to 15 kids have to have that work ethic to really keep their place and make their mark on the team and fill in the gaps. And I do think that through college, that was the biggest thing I learned, was my work ethic is what is going to separate me.
Yeah. And I feel like that's something that I always like kind of fall back on too, was work ethic. Like I remember going in well, granted, I didn't play that much, so I could do, 3 workouts before a game on game days, but like always like texting Coach D, and we got more workouts in my senior year, Coach D, when you were our strength coach. Again, Naomi wasn't there, but then even with like our other strength coach of like always wanting to be in the weight room or get in the gym late at night, and just falling back on that work ethic when maybe performance or other things weren't really holding up. And then we see that too, like being out of sport now, our work ethic with when it comes to our careers or relationships or whatever it is, like that's something that's always, across the board, you can access that. It doesn't really matter now how many points we scored in a game or whatever the accolades are. Like to take away those more so intangible things of work ethic, mindset, all of that stuff. And I feel like Coach D, you see whatever team you're working with, you put so much heart and so much dedication into all of it. Like being able to be athletes on the same campus as you, I think that was so noticeable. Just like your work ethic in general. So I love that. That's what you say, and I think from an outside perspective that really shows as well.
I think you'll always win in life if you give it your all, whether you achieve the goal, whatever the goal may be, or not. I think it's easier to live with losing when you've put everything into it to give yourself the best chances to be successful. And I think that's true of everything in life.
Yeah, that's so true.
Coach Steve, what is your experience with maybe just the college space specifically? What do you see in student athletes, the difference what work ethic does do for them, specifically mentally?
I think for me, I'm very process driven. And so, for example, when I look at an off-season training for basketball, we're talking about 8 weeks in the summer and then another 3 or 4 in September. And so what do those baseline numbers look like in terms of fitness and strength training and lean body mass and so on and so forth? And then what do those baseline numbers improve to over the course of an 8 to 12 week period? And that's where you're really able to show them like, hey, because you put in the work day in and day out, 5 days a week at 7 o'clock in the morning is why we were able to make this transformation. And this transformation is ultimately what's going to help you be the best version of yourself as a basketball player on the court. Right. And so in my role specifically right now, my job is to enhance your performance as a basketball player, not necessarily taking the approach of enhancing your performance in the weight room. Now, if I do enhance your performance in the weight room, the carryover effect is to make you a better basketball player, but I'm not training you to be an elite lifter. I'm training you to be an elite basketball player.
What do you feel like, because I heard you say you're focused on more of the process. Can you explain more to the viewers, like what you feel like focusing on the process rather than the outcome or the beginning stages is helpful for any athletes?
So for us, it's a matter of our week 1 training is going to be a heck of a lot easier than week 12. And I don't expect you to come in week 1 and be able to accomplish what you're going to be accomplishing in week 12. But can we chip away so that come week 10, 11, and 12, week 1, where you set the foundation, you're able to accomplish so much more. So for example, when we talk about a fitness test, our fitness test is 22s. And by the end, every athlete
you have to share with us what that is.
So it's baseline.
I don't know what that is, but I'm scared. I'm scared to know.
You start at baseline.
Okay.
You run down, you run back, you run down, back through free throw line. So it's basically almost 2 down and backs, just shy. That's 1 rep. We run 20 of them in a row. Every rep is on 75 seconds. A passing grade is 20 for 20. Anything less than 100% is not acceptable.
I'm getting anxious right now. Let me remind myself, I'm here. I'm in my kitchen right now. I'm not on the basketball court.
But we start with 6 reps.
Okay.
Week 1. And all of my athletes will tell you 6 reps week 1 feels worse than 15, 18, whatever reps 4 weeks down the road. Because they don't have any expectation of what it's going to feel like week 1. And they're not in the fitness level that they are as we progress, because we're doing other fitness tasks over the course of our training to get them fitter for the test, not just running the test. Yeah. So by the time that they have to take the test, it's like, I've given you all the answers to the test. You just have to show up and put in the work week in and week out. And so long as you do that and follow the progression, you will see the results that you want. Now, the kid that for some reason misses a week of training and you've missed the progression, or the kid that is slacking on their sleep and is getting 4 out of 4 hours of sleep and showing up to training and not able to run at 100%. The kid that's not fueling properly or hydrated well to have the outputs necessary in conditioning week in and week out, yeah, it might not be as easy for them, but the kid that buys into the process every single week and does what they're supposed to do, you'll pass the test. And it couldn't really be an easier test in life. They're much harder tests in life.
Very true.
You just have to do the work.
I agree. Do you think there is a mental, because I think going into my freshman year, I was so nervous for the strength and conditioning specifically. And I've always been good at conditioning. So what would you give the viewers advice on, like, mentally, how do they prepare for this process?
I think 1, betting on yourself, like in anything in life.
Yeah.
2, trusting the process, trusting the person that's leading you in the process. If you don't understand something, ask questions or ask for clarification, or why are we doing this? Why are we doing that? And then putting in the work and chipping away at it. I don't think it's any different than skill work in basketball. In fact, I think strength and conditioning, and this is why I probably love it, I think the weight room is easier than showing up and executing as a basketball player, a soccer player, and whatever sport you do. Because the reality of the matter is, and this is why I love it, the weight room doesn't lie to you. It will give back to you whatever you give to it. So if you give it 100%, it's going to give back 100% of what you gave.
Yeah.
Right? But if you don't, then you're going to fall short of whatever the ultimate goal is. So I think once an athlete finds that comfort zone of appreciation, and my hope is that every athlete has the experience of a coach who obviously is educated and knows what they're doing, but is able to make you gain and feel confident in the environment so that day in and day out, you notice the differences. And I know this is how it's supposed to feel, and it feels good, and I'm seeing myself get better, and I'm seeing the translation onto the court.
Yeah, I think that education piece around it too is so important, of like, this is why we're doing this. And especially for you, working at USC, working with such high level athletes and athletes who are there to win, I feel like it makes a lot more sense, telling them, like, if you want to be in March Madness, if you want to be competing in March, like, this is why we're doing this now, and giving them kind of that, a little roadmap for them almost, and allowing them to remind themselves, like, okay, there's a purpose to this. I'm not just doing this because my coach wants me to pass out or whatever it is. Like, there is a purpose to it, and there is a process to it. And I love that you're saying that. And to answer your question too, Naomi, is now, what I would want to tell athletes too is everything that Coach D said, and then also visualizing yourself doing it. Because I feel like what at least I struggled with was, I always was so anxious about it that I was not knowingly visualizing myself literally failing the test, because I was so nervous, what happens if I fail, what happens if I don't pass, all of that stuff. And your brain just hears okay, I'm gonna pass, I'm not gonna make it. Whereas if you actually sit with yourself and bet on yourself, like Coach D said, but adding that visualization part to it of literally visualizing yourself running through that line, visualizing how you want to feel that day during that training. And I think that's why, and what you said too, Coach D, of the athlete who isn't sleeping well or who isn't fueling properly, that's also why being a D1 athlete is not just one full-time job, but 2 full-time jobs. Because even when you're not on the court or not in the weight room, you're having to think about what you're eating, what time you're going to sleep at, how much water you're drinking. Your brain is constantly on and it's constantly activated, which can be very stressful at times. But again, if you're educated about the process, about the outcome, and why you're doing it, really grounded in the intention behind it, I think that makes the training just that much more effective. Speaking of not experience, because I didn't do any of that. I mean, I did. We were in the gym, we were putting in the work, but my intention was so that I don't die in practice. Exactly. But there is such a bigger meaning behind all of it.
And in my experience, where athletes fall short, it's not in their workouts, it's in the things that they do outside of their workouts. Those are the variables, the controllables that oftentimes we don't control, are the very things that either set you up for success or failure in the skill set and the arena that you want to succeed in.
Yeah.
Right.
So those are the battles I probably fight the most. And once it all kind of connects and clicks and an athlete has an unremarkable game, and it's okay, so talk me through the difference in your preparation in the last 24 to 48 hours versus last week's game when you didn't play well. And then the things they start saying out loud, oh, well, I was eating breakfast every day, and I know I was hydrated because I passed my hydration test every single day and all sorts of things. And I'm like, well, do you see how this all adds up to your performance? And like I tell them, it's like, I'm not nitpicking because I'm mad at you or disappointed in you. I'm nitpicking because I want you to be the best version of yourself. And I want you to showcase yourself in the best way possible on the biggest of stages under the brightest of lights. So let's find a way to set you up for success so that everybody can see how good you are.
Yeah. Do you ever run into an issue where it's like you almost like you're wanting them to be their best self more than the athlete wants to be their best self?
All the time.
How do you deal with that?
And I think it's one of the hardest things that I have had to deal with and continue to deal with over the course of my entire career is I often find that I know that I am the ultimate competitor. I have always been willing to get 8 to 10 hours of sleep every night and hydrate and have my protein shakes after every single workout and take my cherry juice and all of those things. Because why would I put in the work to not reap the full benefits and rewards of it?
Yeah.
So it is something that I constantly deal with, but I also have to realize that everybody's not like me.
Yeah.
And so I try to continue to find and have grace with it and find unique and different ways to tap in and reach different athletes. Like the biggest challenge I think as a coach is figuring out how athletes respond to your motivational tactics. I have certain athletes, and it was the same thing at LMU. Even when I had 5 different teams, like every team had a different personality. Women's basketball versus beach volleyball versus baseball versus softball. And that's the fun and beauty of it. There are certain athletes who I know I can go up to and trash talk during 22s and say, hey, so-and-so right next to you said that they're going to kick your butt in the next rep. And they look at me and they go, not a chance, coach. Not a chance. Right? And then I know some players, if I were to say that, they're going to get so nervous and anxious that they're not going to perform well on the next rep. So instead of saying that, I need to walk by them and give them a little pat. Hey, you got this. I know you got this. I know it's hard, but you got it. Just put one foot in front of the other and give me 20 seconds. Let's go. And pump them up. So I think that's the challenge. But yes, I constantly deal with, man, if only they all would do what I do, we'd be the best team in the country.
I think that's one thing, even now, being out of basketball, and I haven't spoke to you in maybe like 3 to 2 years. Even when I see your Instagram and any of your posts, I'm like, one thing about Coach D is her consistency. So can you speak a little bit more about how you stay so consistent in so many areas of your life in general?
I think it's all I know. Really? I'm very regimented. I love a routine. I love a to-do list and checking off all the boxes. Yeah. I will say as I get older in life, I'm trying to be less regimented without losing sight of the ultimate goals. But because it's what I've always done, it works for me. And I think it's a great example to my kids. You know, as kids have left or over the course of the years and they've graduated, you know, they've always said, Coach, you always showed up every day. Like, we never knew if you had a bad day. And I was like, well, that's my job. And I'm just doing it. I'm not just doing it, but I'm doing it to show you that life isn't always going to be butterflies and roses. And some days you just have to show up and grind it out. And other days you're going to be sitting on top of the world. But I find power in consistency and a routine. And it's something that I try to preach to my athletes because I think their lives will become easier if they endorse and adopt a consistent routine. I agree. Versus constantly scrambling and trying to figure it all out.
Yeah. Routines as college athletes are extremely important. And back to what you were just saying too about how you get to know like your athletes too, because that brought up a lot of thoughts in my mind too of like as a student athlete, a lot of your routine is told to you. Like a lot of your schedule is told to you. And in that, at least what I felt was kind of like a loss of power, a loss of freedom, which obviously I knew that's what I was getting into and wanting to follow that to buy in and to be part of the program. But also what I wish I would have done a little bit more too is within those routines, like having a routine and part of my day that was like just for me and that I felt in control of, because I think a lot of the times, which is where my anxiety came from, was feeling like I wasn't like in control of a lot of stuff that was going on. So I love that you like to see that you are so in control of your routine and feeling inspired by that and hoping athletes see that too, of like, you can create your schedule. Like, even if you're being told to go to this place and this place, like, there's still things within that you can control. And I think that's super important to preach to young athletes. And then also going back to what you were saying about getting to know the personalities of your athletes and whatnot, like, especially for a strength coach or an athletic trainer, like you said, you can have maybe like 5 different teams at once. Like, there's a lot of athletes you're working with, and it sounds like you really are in tune with like the art of coaching. Like, it's not just a one size fits all type of thing. And I think that is so empowering to hear, because I know as one of your athletes, like, I always felt very seen during our weight sessions, and even in like the work that I would put in outside of the team sessions. Like, that is something that I can definitely attest to, is like, you do get to know your athletes, and I think that is so beautiful, and it feels very safe to be around as well. And I love that you mentioned that, and if there's coaches listening to this too, like, really listening to that and hearing that and implementing that into your work too, because I know it's so beneficial for athletes. But also, I can imagine it's very hard for the coaches, because that is a lot of energy spent on other people. So how do you feel like you, in everything that you just said, how do you feel like you take care of yourself too?
Well, I will say I work out for me and
Good.
Not for my kids.
Yeah.
It's kind of like, every morning, first thing in the morning, making your bed. Well, working out is like one of the tasks that I check for myself. It's my place where it's a stress reliever. I find that I do some of my best thinking when I'm doing sadistic Stairmaster or treadmill things. If there's something going on within the team and I'm trying to come up with messaging at certain points and junctures in the season, that's typically when my best thinking will happen. So workouts first and foremost are for me, but also to show them that I practice what I preach. For me, it's in the off season, it's traveling, it's taking my weekends and not working, it's not taking on clients at the moment. It's something that I told myself when I came back here, that I wasn't going to continue working 2 jobs like I had for 6 years, juggling college and professional world, and I'm grateful I did, but it started to burn me out. So in the off season, when hours are lighter, it's getting out of the office when I can at noon or whatnot, going to yoga classes. I find that my phone is probably on do not disturb more than it is on. So just finding those little nuances and things, and I've really been making a habit of waking up in the morning and writing more. I'm trying to pick up some new hobbies, maybe the likes of, I'd like to learn how to golf. There's a pottery studio near me that I want to test out. And so just getting out and doing some different things so that my job and my career doesn't consume me.
Yeah. That's awesome. And it goes back to kind of what I was trying to get across earlier, of like having those things for yourself, no matter how routine you are, no matter how consistent you are, being able to implement those moments for yourself where you can, be with yourself, let go of everything else that's going on.
Oh, I think you pour into other people better when you pour into yourself first.
Oh, yes.
Right? Like in
100%.
the event of an emergency on the airplane, you're supposed to put your oxygen mask on first before you serve somebody else.
Yeah.
But I think once you take care of yourself and you have more energy, you're able to better serve other people.
Absolutely.
I keep hearing you say, I practice what I preach and I have to lead by example. And do you feel like that is something of that student athletes, like you see in your weight room or just on the court or whatever sport you're coaching, that is a benefit for them to adopt in their space?
As far as me practicing what I preach?
Like for them as athletes to practice what they preach.
For sure. I think it's a great habit for anybody, right? Like if you're going to talk the talk, walk the walk. So I would certainly say that any of my athletes would encourage them to make sure that they're practicing what they're preaching throughout sport and throughout life, throughout friendships, relationships, whatever it may be.
Yeah, definitely. And I want to get into your own sport background and kind of how you fell into this career and everything that's kind of led you up to this point. I know we talked at the beginning about your childhood and how you like to play a bunch of different sports, but you obviously ended up only choosing one to get to college, and that was soccer. What was your experience like as a soccer player, and why do you feel like you chose soccer?
I think I chose it because I felt like I was the best at it. I think soccer, I knew I didn't want to just run in a circle on a track. So it was either probably soccer or basketball, even though I was fast. But I think the thought of going to track practice every day was rather daunting. Yeah. And I think the sport of soccer showcased my athleticism maybe more because the field was bigger and I was fit and fast. And I think it's the sport that I played the longest. Like, it's the sport that I first fell in love with. Mm-hmm. So that's ultimately why I chose soccer. I think my experience was interesting. I don't think it was as good as I thought it was going to be. I don't think it was cracked up to be what I thought it was going to be. I think we all envision, like, I'm the stud in high school and I'm going to go Power 5 and be a stud wherever I go. And I initially went to the University of Maryland, and I don't think I realized at the time how difficult the transition would be to be away from home. I thought I wanted something completely different. Boarding school life, I'd always been around my family. The class sizes were capped at 11. It was a very intimate experience, and I get to this school and my first lecture is like 400. I don't know anybody, whatever, states away from my family. The soccer experience was really intimidating. I was nowhere near as talented as the majority of the team. I was still athletic, but I didn't really felt like I fit in. So I ended up transferring out after my freshman year. I returned home. I enrolled in Quinnipiac University. I enrolled in business school there when I was on the soccer team as well. And you know, everything happens for a reason. That Christmas, or shortly thereafter, my mom had told us that she had been diagnosed with breast cancer. So it was fitting for me to be now home and commuting and living at home while I commuted to school to be able to help with her treatments and so on and so forth, and just be close to home to help my family. And then I played for the next 2 years or so. In my junior year, I was sprinting to close down a defender in hopes that the ball would pop out and I'd have a shot on goal. And she did what every defender should do. She whacked the ball to clear it, and I was maybe 5 yards from her, and it blasted me in the temple. It pretty much stopped me in my tracks. I pretty much melted to the ground. Teammate of mine, I knew something was wrong because I was like opening my eyes and the lights were just so bright. And my teammate was like, "Are you good?" And I was like, "I don't think I am, but if you get me up, I'll keep playing." And so she got me up. I played into overtime. But of course, my mom being a nurse after the game, she was like, "You're going into the athletic trainer." I think I somehow managed to pass the concussion test. I don't know how, but in the weeks after, I found it difficult to see in class, and light was irritating me, and I was having nagging headaches. And so I told my mom, and so then I went to see a neurosurgeon and had an MRI done, and we sat in the office, and he diagnosed that I had a partially slipped disc, C5, C6, and at the time I didn't really know what that meant, and I was like, okay, like, when can I play again? And he was like, no, like, you're lucky you didn't break your neck. And honestly and truly, because you've been strength training your entire life is probably part of the reason that you didn't, because you were so strong. And so I was like, I'm not really understanding what this means. And my mom was like, your soccer career is over. And I was like, but I'm supposed to get a scholarship, like full scholarship next year. This, that, the other. My mom was like, we'll figure it out. Like, your soccer career is over. So in that moment, my soccer career was done. What I had known from 5 years old until I was probably 20, so 15 years. I just recall going home and like getting rid of everything as far as my uniforms, my cleats, shin guards, like anything that would make me think of the sport, I got rid of.
Wow.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. I mean, we all know that like sport will come to an end one day, especially for women and especially given the sport that we might be in. But for it to end so suddenly and not really on your terms, I'm sure was really, really tough to deal with. How do you remember feeling after that moment and like those either like the days following or the months? Like, how did you cope with that ending to the sport?
I think at first I was just in denial. I was like, okay, it's like any other injury. Like, I'll get better. I'll be able to come back. They'll change their mind. But when it truly like sunk in, I was just like, I was devastated. I was like, this has been my identity for so long. Like, what am I going to do now? It was as if somebody just stole my childhood identity that I didn't. And there was only the unknown moving forward. And I had no idea what I wanted to do or what I wanted to be. And one of my teammates was in the gym. She came across this bodybuilder guy. And I don't know why he stood out to her, but she went up to him and she was like, do you train people for competitions? And he was like, yeah, I do. It just depends my availability and so on and so forth. And she gave him the backstory. And she was like, will you do me a huge favor and just meet with her? Because I think you would help her in this time. and I think she would love to do this. And so she connected us. I went to see him, and he was like, here's the deal. I'll train you for the competition. Like, he gave me all the nutrition, and we would meet once a week. I will train you if you can survive my workout.
Oh my God.
And I said, okay, put me through it. And it was a leg day. I wanted him to do all my legs because that was always the sticking point for me. And I killed his workout.
Oh my gosh.
Every single time he did something, I could do like more reps. I was asking, is that it? Is there more? And he was like, okay, you're now my new favorite client. So like every Sunday I would go see him and train with him, and he prepped me for 14 weeks for my first ever bodybuilding competition. I think it was just the timing of it all. It was exactly what I needed. It was something to like clear my mind and find a different space and environment, but at the same time, it kept me competitive, and it kept me in that competitive spirit and drive and discipline, and I found a whole new passion, and I learned like how lifting can really affect the body in a different way outside of sport, and more importantly, how much you can change your physique with nutrition. And so then I got hooked on it, and I've been dialed in ever since.
Wow. And even with that, it's like you can see, again, like the sport might not last forever, but there are things in sport that you can take with you and apply to career or to anything else in life, like how we mentioned work ethic before, the feeling of competition. Like that is one of the biggest things that I feel like I miss about being a competing athlete is like getting ready for the games, getting ready for that workout, like getting hyped up. Like I find myself like turning my music up so loud in my car on my way to like my local gym. Like, okay, I'm gonna go do my little workout now. But that is such, like, I think that's just such a beautiful thing that you just shared. Like the parts of sport that we can take away when the sport might not be there anymore. And I'm sure that was still really hard for you to adapt to, but being able to still foster all of that in your life just sounds awesome. You know, like you said, everything happens for a reason, and now you are here in so many athletes' lives being such an impactful figure for them. And I just think that, you know, every athlete that gets to work with you is just so lucky. And I love hearing about your background and on your insights and everything that you've been through, because I just really do think it's so inspiring. And especially being a woman in a male-dominated field, like at the time at LMU, you were in charge of all of these men. And again, when I was in college, I was not in the best headspace, as everyone knows who listens to this podcast. So I feel like in the moment, that was not something I was able to like fully realize and grasp and appreciate. But now looking back, like that is just, it's just awesome. All the impact that you're making in so many people's lives, in our lives. And yeah, I just think that was kind of a word vomit, but
thank you.
2 words. With everything that you shared with us today, and especially, you know, your own experience in sport, if you could go back and tell your younger self something, or give yourself some piece of advice or words of wisdom, what would that be?
Don't worry about proving others wrong. Worry about proving yourself right.
So good, Coach D. Wow, so good.
We live in a scorecard society whereby everybody is seeking validation and approval from other people. And I've gotten to a point in my life and my career where I don't want to go as far as say I don't care what other people think about me, but I do think my work speaks for itself. And if I'm not for everyone, then that's okay.
Yeah.
And the people I do attract in my life are the people that I want in my life. And ultimately and truly, if you don't want me on your team and you don't want me to work for you, I probably don't want to work for you either.
Yep.
So true.
That is so true.
It's something that I feel like is so simple, but is hard to come to that realization, because like you said, that external validation, like it's not taught for us to go inward and to look internally, or taught to just be okay with ourselves. So to preach that message to your younger self and younger athletes in general is super important. So thank you for sharing that, and thank you for sharing your wisdom with us today, and we hope you enjoyed your time in the mental training room.
Had a blast. Thank you guys for having me.
Thank you.
And that's a wrap for today's session in the mental training room. If you found value in this episode, make sure to subscribe to our show, share it with a teammate, friend, parent, or anyone you think would benefit from listening, and follow us on the Instagram at mtr.pod.
We'll catch you next time inside the mental training room. If you are currently experiencing a mental health crisis, please dial 988 for emergency support.